Welcome to a new episode of The Career Changers. Our guest today is Sarah Dale, founder of Project 1490. After a 13-year career in advertising, Sarah created Project 1490 by combining her years in leadership with her experiences living in Montana. She's been fortunate to work at great brands like the Wall Street Journal, Fortune, and Nativo, where she led big teams and drove hundreds of millions in revenue. While she had an impressive career, Sarah's love of nature and experiences in the wilds of Montana are what started her wish to get other corporate women to build their own badassery and confidence by learning outdoor skills. Today, we are going to talk about her career change story and leadership lessons for women like you. Learn from chicken, archery, changing attire, and chopping wood. Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
So I'm really excited about this episode to discover this leadership lesson that we can learn from nature as women. But I guess they can be applied to anyone. Why not?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's start with your background. So first of all, well, you had a great career, but what was your dream job when you were a child?
Oh gosh, it changed a lot. I was a dancer for a while when I was a kid, so I had dreams about being a dancer. Then it changed to being a designer. But it was always creative. It was much more creative than probably I ended up doing.
Mm. And so what was your relationship with school while you were growing up? Was something you were enjoying? What did you decide to study after?
Yeah, so I had a difficult relationship with school, honestly. I just wasn't a great student for most of my academic career. And I applied to one college on the deadline, and it was good that I got in because I don't know what would have become of me. But then when I was in college, I really got serious and got really good grades and all that kind of stuff. But it was really, I had an internship during college years, that one of my jobs was to edit all the bios for the Fortune magazine's big events. And I would look at all these CEO bios, and they either had military experience in their background or they had sales.
Oh,
Thought, well, I'm not going
interesting.
into the military. So I went into sales because I thought that must be the right background to have.
You had the desire to work and probably to earn money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so how did you then progress your career?
The internship was really crucial to me. I worked at Fortune magazine for 4 years during every school break, every chance I got, and I got a real education in event planning and also sales while I was there. And they did me a huge favor when I was graduating, and they said at the time, Time Inc. was like the pinnacle of publishing. And they said, if you stay here since you were 17, you're just never going to appreciate what you have. So go somewhere that's really hard to sell and smaller, and we'll hire you back in a year. And so that's what they did. And that's what I did. I went to a small place for a year and learned how to appreciate all the resources that the big company had. And then, yeah, I just tried to climb the corporate ladder as fast as I possibly could when I was young.
Mm. And so I guess during those years you already had a contact with nature and you were visiting Montana. But what inspired you to make the significant shift from corporate life to living in Montana?
Yeah, so I didn't actually have a real connection to nature. I was very much a city girl, and I
Oh,
had traveled a bit, but at that time all these movies were coming out that were staged in the mountains, and I was such a city girl. I said, how did they get those backdrops to look so real? And people said, no, Montana really looks like that. So I was like, I have to go. I have to go to Montana. So I went by myself. A friend of mine gave me Ralph Waldo Emerson's Self-Reliance to read while I was out there, and that is a dangerous combination, going on vacation by yourself and reading Emerson. And I just didn't know who I was when I was out there, and it was so invigorating to me. And at the time, I had already got into management. By that time, I was 24. And all the people at the top of the ladder looked fairly miserable. And so I thought, there's got to be something more. So I came home and packed my stuff and quit my job and moved to Montana.
Hmm. And was there a particular moment, maybe in your memory, that, or an event specifically that you remember when you realized your true calling?
Oh gosh, I think that actually is a culmination of the past like 30 years because I really feel like it's taken me this amount of time to really find that calling, which there's ingredients from each chapter of my life, and Montana played a very big role in it. But now that doing Project 1490, I feel like is such a passion for me that, and it's really a combination of everything that I've done. And yeah.
So many times when we change career, we reach a point where we feel quite fed up with what we have been doing. And sometimes it seems maybe our life didn't have too much sense and we think, oh, I lost time. But then later on, we realize that everything we went through, the skills we learned were actually functional to what we had to do next. So, what insight did your advertising background bring to your work at Project 4090?
It's interesting because of what you just said. It's so true because I actually had the idea or the seed of the idea for what's become 1490 20 something years ago when I lived in Montana. And at the time, it was called Grace and Grit. And my thought was to bring city women like me out to Montana to package up all of the experiences that I had into sort of a retreat, come for a week. So you don't have to move to Montana, but you can learn all of these stuff from archery to catching horses to all of those things. And it was like an Outward Bound meets Oprah. And I didn't do it back then. I ended up getting divorced and moving back to New York City, and then really falling back into my advertising career and just climbing the ladder again. And there's a lot in me that could regret not doing this sooner. But honestly, if I hadn't had the career that I've had and been in management, leading teams, all of those things, and had those experiences, I just wouldn't have had all of the ingredients to make it happen the way that it is happening now. And so each were very essential. I don't waste too much time on the regret because I really do, as you said, it really is like I couldn't have gotten here without all those steps in between.
Yes, and definitely, I think, and also all the transferable skills because you're still running a business. And so I guess you may have learned a lot of skills that are helpful now for your
100%.
activity.
Yeah, 100%.
Learning outdoor skills can be transformative, and for people that live in big cities, especially escaping from the city life can be very regenerative. So, can you share with us what type of impact this type of experiences can have on all the people involved in Project 4090? I know they are tailored specifically for women, but I still believe that anyone can benefit out of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree with you. I think that the combination of doing it for women in particular is really because if you've grown up in a city, the amount of opportunity that you might have had to learn some of these skills, it's not something that typically our dads passed on to us. Or so we do everything from archery, lassoing, we figure out how to change a tire, jumpstart a car, how not to get ripped off by a mechanic. Those
I
kinds of,
like that one.
yeah, chop some wood with an axe, build fires, and we're doing a lot of wilderness survival skills and stuff like that now. The lessons in it for me are very transferable. The ones I love so much is when I learned how to shoot a bow, the first kind of accomplishment is not to get the arrows all in the bullseye. You'd be very lucky if you did, but what you're really aiming for is to find your consistent mistakes, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
If your arrows are always to the right and high, how to adjust. And that has helped me so many times in especially starting new roles in my jobs, of really trying to find what are the consistent quote unquote mistakes, or what are the consistencies that you can really have an impact by fixing. And it's how I've always discovered what is the low hanging fruit to go after in terms of making change and transforming places.
And you mentioned archery, but also there is changing attire or chopping wood as part of the curriculum. How do these skills contribute to leadership development?
There's a lot of research that's been done around confidence and the science of building confidence. Where the way that you build it is by getting out of your comfort zone, learning new things, having a community of women around you that can draft off and also help other women, because it's a flex. Or the person who's in a position of giving advice or whatever, it helps the other person, but it also helps you build confidence. And I think with all of our extremely busy lives, busy careers, family, all of that, it's like, when is the next time you're getting out of your comfort zone? Like, when is that? Is that on the schedule? Not usually, right? Could we have a place and a form where women have the opportunity to do that on a regular basis, and not just do it by themselves, but really have a shared experience with other women, so that you're hitting all of the marks in terms of how we actually build more confidence. And then that shows up in lots of different ways in our lives and our careers, because you'll step forward more, you'll speak up more, you'll have a deeper well of confidence that you can call on in all of those moments that we encounter in our careers. Maybe you'll ask for more money, maybe you'll negotiate more often, all of those kinds of things that do affect us.
Hmm. And do you think that these activities also help to reconnect with ourselves because they are physical activities and so they allow us to switch off our overactive minds?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It has so many benefits in that direction. One thing so great, just in terms of the archery, is you have to clear your head. You have to get out of you have to get out of your brain and have some clarity. It's very meditative. And if you're worried about where the arrow is going to go, if you're worried about people watching you, if you're all of those things that come up in us emotionally and in our brains, that will prevent the arrow going where it needs to go. So it's incredibly good practice for having your mind be very present and really calm. And then the other piece of it is you're doing this with other women and in nature. And there is nothing that connects us back to ourselves and to other people quite like that.
Yeah, definitely. So what type of advice do you have for women who want to step out of their comfort zone and embrace new challenges, whether in the corporate world or beyond? And maybe women that never experience contact with nature so strong.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we can be doing just in our day-to-day lives. So most of us, I think, have a whisper in our ear once in a while, maybe it's on a daily basis, that an impulse comes up to go do something. And typically, if everyone's like me, there's also the next voice you hear will tell you why you can't do it, or why you're too busy, or why all of that. But one piece of advice I give to people is just follow one of them. Commit to saying, whether it's once a week or once a day, you know, it might be, "Oh, I really want to go take a walk," or "I don't have time." But if you take everything that comes after the impulse as a lie and follow the original impulse, it is shocking where those things can take us in our lives. And there's a lot of other things that we can be doing. First, finding your comfort zone, right? A lot of people, we talk about it a lot and we know something about it, of like things that make us panic that are like way out of our comfort zone. But there's also another layer in between of things that we're really adept at, very comfortable, and then those things that make us panic. And finding that in between layer is really key because that's where you can go to grow. And there's no need to go like straight into the panic zone. You can go one layer of, oh, I haven't done that before, but I'm not afraid of it. I could try that. And if you give yourself a commitment to try something like that once of whatever you can do, you'd be surprised at how far it can take you.
Mhm. And so, is there a career changer, we say find your inspiration because it's from there where everything can change. And so, do you have a specific place or something specific that you do that brings you inspiration apart being in nature, or maybe just a place?
Oh, that's interesting. I find walking in nature actually to be the best thing for me these days. If I really want to get my head cleared and let some new ideas come in, I can get really pretty inspired on a walk. Yeah. And I think a lot of people find that it's like where the ideas you're able to get rid of some stuff. So it makes more space for some new inspiration to come in.
Yeah, so sometimes we have to let go of something to make space for the new to come in.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
We are reaching the end of this episode, but we have a few more questions. So, first of all, looking back, how do you feel about your journey from the corporate world to Montana and your project?
I feel like now it all makes sense. Before it was like, felt like very distinct, incongruous chapters in my life. And, but now coming together, having all those experiences come together to form Project 1490, it really makes sense of the life that I've lived so far. So it feels great. And it also, I think, having had the idea for a long time and not really understanding or knowing how to manifest it into something. And I got some really wonderful advice about a year ago that somebody said, just start with 5 people. And that was so helpful to me because I, being an ambitious corporate woman and working at great brands, I kept thinking it has to be the next unicorn. It has to be the next Airbnb. It has to be
Yeah,
whatever. It
yeah.
has to be this wild success right off the bat. And that sort of took that out of it of just start. And really, this much longer story, but this really started as a side hustle that I had during my career that I just started getting people out into nature through mobile glamping. And one thing led to another that I was going to start putting on a retreat. The old idea came back. And then suddenly I realized that this isn't a retreat. This is a community. This is needs to have more than just a one and done kind of event to it. And it all started with that idea of just start small. Start really
Mhm.
small.
That's a really good advice because, especially when we had a career and we've been exposed maybe to big numbers or big jobs, then there is think it's very difficult to go back to the basics.
Yeah.
But it's so
Yeah.
important to take that step and just to do something that we can see in our mind. And when it becomes reality, even if with a few people, then it's possible to move forward and make it grow.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it just makes things a lot more possible because there's heaps of obstacles in front of us all the time. And a lot of them are internal of why I can't do something.
Mhm.
And a lot of them are imaginary. You'll find out if you just start with 5 people, whatever your idea is, you find out pretty quickly if you've got something.
I love that. So, what advice would you give to someone who is considering a career change?
Talk to people and not in a way that lets your imagination think that you're actually doing something, but it's a way to start. So if there are people that you admire for what they've done, so many people are so willing to help, give their experience, give their advice, and really like I got that advice because I verbally threw up on somebody at a conference that I really admired. And I was like, I want to do this thing, but I don't know how to bring it to fruition. And I don't know what it is exactly yet. And that's the person who said, start with 5 people. So I feel like getting it out of you into other people's orbits, that people that you admire, that can really help to start clarifying, how do I take the first step and not try to jump up a ladder, but how do I just take the first step? Because we all have these great ideas living within us, and we only have this one life as far as we know, right? So we might as well give it a go.
Mm. So if anyone would like to discover more about what you do, where and how they can find you.
Yeah, so project1490.com, and we're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram, and you can reach out to me at Sarah at project1490.com anytime.
Thank you. And now really the last question, if you could give yourself a piece of advice, what would you say to your younger self?
I'd say it's all going to be okay, so I could relax a little bit more. Yeah, all going to be okay. There's a great quote that I have framed that says, it's going to be okay in the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end.
Oh, that's really
Yeah,
nice. I like it,
yeah,
and it's actually true.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us today and sharing your inspirational career change story and your wisdom with our listeners.
Thank you so much for having me. This is wonderful.
And a last message for our listeners, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review and tune in next week for a new inspirational episode of The Career Changers. Thank you.